The war in Iran could end in 2 to 3 weeks. At least that is what the American president is claiming.
Well, Donald Trump says that U.S. forces would end operations in Iran very soon as fuel prices surged to $4 a gallon in the U.S. for the first time since 2022. Now, the U.S. president was asked about high fuel prices, but Trump dismissed any concerns. He said that prices will tumble down once he leaves Iran, adding that it will be happening very soon. Listen to this.
I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3, we're hitting them very hard. Last night we knocked out tremendous amounts of missile-making facilities. As you probably read or wrote, we knocked out. Excuse me.
Pardon me for interrupting. The U.S. will be gone or done with the war in 2
I think we're 2 or 3 weeks.
Not 3 weeks. If it is
we'll leave.
Trump said that the end to the U.S. operations is not dependent on reaching any deal with Iran. And Trump reiterated that his earlier remarks that the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz should be other countries' problems, saying Washington will have nothing to do with the crucial waterway.
I think that the people understand it. We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the Strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves. I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that.
Now, President Trump also made light of the Iranian threat against leading U.S. tech firms in West Asia. He wondered what will Iran use for any attacks, asking whether it would be a BB gun.
Well, the White House has announced that Trump would address the nation to provide an important update on Iran. The address is scheduled at 9 p.m. local time on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the U.S. Central Command continued its military operations targeting Iran. Thousands of American troops have already been sent to the region, while a third aircraft carrier, USS George H.W. Bush, and its accompanying warships are also heading to the region.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio also said that Washington could see the finish line in the Iran war. Talking to Fox News, Rubio said that there is potential for direct meeting with Iran, but said that Trump won't allow negotiations to be used as a delay tactic here.
Well, earlier, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi told Al Jazeera that he had received messages from U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff directly, but stressed that it did not amount to a negotiation.
Now, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has said that Tehran has the necessary will to end the war, provided its enemies guaranteed it would not flare up again. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel would press ahead with its military campaign against Tehran.
We will continue to crush the terror regime, fortify the security belts around us, and achieve our goals.
Well, Netanyahu also claimed that Israel is forging new alliances with important countries in the region to counter the Iranian threat, but he did not specify which these countries were that are getting involved with Israel. All right, there's more on this, and for that we're now being joined live by Nader Hashemi from Washington, D.C. He's an associate professor of Middle East and Islamic politics at Georgetown University. Professor Hashemi, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us here on the broadcast. Let's quickly, there's lots to unpack. 2 to 3 weeks is now the new timeline, as we are currently in week 5, which was initially supposed to be the end of the timeline. Now 2 to 3 weeks more. But we have ground troops already deployed, more troops joining in from the U.S. side. George H.W. Bush, the third aircraft carrier, and the entire warship group being deployed to the region. The Houthis already involved. Attacks and threats of attacks on civilian infrastructure only increasing. And the Israelis saying that they've only achieved half of their targets. Does this 2 to 3 week timeline seem plausible, since Israel does not seem to be abiding to it at all at this point?
Well, Israel will abide by whatever the United States decides. So Netanyahu would obviously, if it was up to himself, would like to keep bombing Iran for another 10 years. But if Donald Trump decides to end the war, Israel would have to follow suit. The interesting, point here is, does the 2 to 3 week timeline that the president has announced, is that something that we can guarantee will be the end of this war? This is not the first time that Donald Trump has sort of suggested an end to the war, only to shift the deadline, which just highlights the complete incoherency of U.S. Middle East policy at this moment. It's clear that Donald Trump has completely underestimated the adversary that he's chosen to start a war with. He thought Iran was Venezuela, and they would quickly capitulate. Iran still seems to have a lot of fight left in it. So I wouldn't be surprised if 2 to 3 weeks from now, we are having a similar conversation where Donald Trump is saying the exact same thing 2 to 3 more weeks before this war ends.
Right, Dr. Hashemi, and speaking of underestimations and miscalculations, the US has said that it has achieved its primary objectives of degrading the nuclear capability of Iran and also achieved the regime change. And he said that this new regime is less radicalized than its predecessors. But from what we've seen, if anything, Iran has made it clear that even though its military capabilities are considerably weakened, it's not going to back down. In fact, if it's anything to go by, we've seen them retaliate with a more hardline resolve here. Now, in light of these latest statements, how do we view what Trump is claiming here? And also, do you see this as perhaps a last-ditch effort to exit the war without losing face for Donald Trump here?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. He's trying to exit the war by claiming some massive victory. But the more he speaks, the more Donald Trump reveals his complete misunderstanding of what's going on in the region and how his policy is now totally confused and bewildering to anyone trying to understand it. So just take the question of nuclear weapons. Donald Trump says, you know, we're going to stay in this war to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Well, last year when he bombed Iran, he said the United States had totally and completely obliterated Iran's potential for making nuclear weapons. Now he's saying we still have to accomplish that task. So that doesn't make any sense. He's claiming that, you know, the United States has achieved regime change. He doesn't understand what regime change actually means. It doesn't mean individuals who've been killed and new people come into their place. It means an entire political system that is in place, and that system has changed. And that clearly hasn't happened in Iran. When leaders of Iran are killed or assassinated by the Israelis or Americans, new people take their place, and the regime very much remains in control. And if anything, it's not a more moderate regime. Every Iran analyst realizes that the people coming to power in Iran are ultra hardliners, people who are less willing to make a deal with the United States. So everything Donald Trump says is just demonstrably false. And this just serves to highlight the incoherency of American foreign policy toward the Persian Gulf at this moment.